Our people are always saying that we must emancipate our minds from white mental slavery. But to our own detriment, most who makes that statement are themselves the most mentally enslaved. For there's no more greater evidence of being mentally enslaved than to self-identify ourselves by the N-word and to pray to Jesus. Because both words were originally brutally beaten and imposed upon our ancestors during their enslavement. Therefore, to now still hold on to those imposed words are in fact evidence of Black mental enslavement. It's only by being mentally enslaved that Black people can be made to self-identify ourselves by the N-word and be made to defend a Bible brutally beaten into submission within the blood-soaked minds of our enslaved ancestors by their ungodly enslavers. Whenever people are mentally enslaved, they can then be made to believe many things that literally insults their own intelligence. Because when people are mentally enslaved, nonsense always makes perfect sense. I would rather lose Black friends for telling the Black liberating truth than to endorse mentally enslaved behaviors and traditions in order to hold on to mentally enslaved Black friends. Not because millions of people all believe the same nonsense doesn't make those nonsense true. It's most often because those people have been subjected to the same mental enslaving process. This is the true reason why millions of Black people now praise to the false god of our ungodly enslavers. It's also why we now have adult Black men that are supposed to be the leaders within our families and our communities, literally walking around self-identifying themselves by the N-word. And even more ridiculously, they think that it's a positive, empowering statement to declare themselves as being a real one. You know, that's as smart as walking around with a box full of rocks. Our people have been brainwashed to believe what insults our own intelligence and to strongly defend those ridiculous beliefs is true mental slavery. Mental slavery is a state of mind where discerning between liberation and enslavement is twisted, where people's minds become trapped by disinformation and misinformation. Mental slavery is the worst form of slavery. It gives you the illusion of freedom. It makes you trust and revere and defend your oppressors while making enemies of your own people who are trying to open your eyes and free your mind. The term mental slavery is a term that we use. White oppressive forces, however, uses another term. The term used by them is to socialize. They describe it as to socialize the oppressed. Socialize is when the oppressors exploits their monopoly over the input of information that are systematically and repetitively fed into the collective minds of the oppressed by feeding the oppressed disinformation that makes them think in ways that are against their own interests and instead in ways serving the nefarious interests of their oppressors. This is all possible because regardless of how intelligent people are, if it's possible to control the information that they receive, it's entirely possible to control what they'll believe. The white oppressors exploit their monopoly over information that Black people receive to shape our beliefs in ways that benefits the white society, in ways that are against our own interests and in ways that serve the system of white supremacy. It's also the true reason why many Black people are now self-loathing, perceives ourselves as being our own worst enemies, and reveres the oppressors, in spite of such a brutally horrific history of the contrary. Whenever the oppressed starts thinking exactly as the oppressors wants them to think, it's always because they've been socialized to do so. Those who are mentally enslaved insist that our collective condition, that our minds have been manipulated by a silly slave syndrome myth. which presents what would in fact be the least plausible scenario for controlling generations of millions of people. Is not how brainwashing even works. As I've said before, whenever people are mentally enslaved, they'll always believe nonsense that insults their own intelligence. The truth is that we've been socialized by the white oppressors to think and behave in ways that are against our own interests and in ways serving the white society. And the programming is being fed into our minds unrelentingly through propaganda campaigns, unrelentingly. Those of us who tell you the truth are trying to free you from a mental prison that you don't even know you're trapped within. White social scientists describe what they've done to us and what they continue to do to us as merely instilling and reinforcing a value system into the collective minds of the black population that serves the system of white supremacy. It's true mental slavery. And those of us who don't critically think never notices our mental change. Even worse, those who don't critically think make enemies of those who are trying to free their minds and open their eyes. I would rather also stand alone telling the black liberating truth than to join the herd of mentally enslaved black people that literally goes from their cradles to their graves, having lived their entire lives being mentally enslaved by the white oppressors. In walking alone upon a higher path of truth, I will be honoring my ancestors and providing a more awakened legacy for our future generations. Moreover, by teaching the truth, at least I would have spent my life in a worthy cause. So if I fail, at least I failed while daring greatly, so that my place will not be remembered amongst those of my people that died mentally enslaved because they refused to critically think for themselves. Therefore, they goes from their cradles to their graves, having lived their entire lives being the white man's fools. It is time to wake up. The time of believing in dumb shit is over.